Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Morse, and I'm a blogging mentor working with businesses. And my business is Learn to Love Your Words. And this is just a summary of my third webinar for 2018, which is on bloggers rage quit. So it's some top tips on what to do when you have those moments where you just go, oh, I can't be doing this anymore, and you just want to quit your blog. You're angry with it, you're fed up with it, you're raging, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm just going to stop doing it. When you come to those barriers where you just don't want to do it anymore, how do you handle that situation? So what I want to share with you today is just 5 tips to help you reignite your writing mojo for your blog. So there's lots of stuff I can say about unblocking your creativity and writing and all that kind of stuff. In fact, I've got loads of stuff on my blog, which is learntoloveyourwords.com, and some other videos on my YouTube channel as well on various different topics around blogging. So it's quite hard to pick just 5, but I've chosen 5 that you can kind of think of like a bit of a process, if you like, to go from that kind of moment of being stuck to being able to get into healthy writing habits and be able to write more fluidly and kind of release your creativity a little bit. So so the first of my 5 tips is to have some thinking time. Now that might sound a little bit strange, but when we're in our businesses, we spend so much of our time just being busy all the time, not really giving ourselves any space to sit and just reflect and think. And it's such an important part of our businesses and our lives as well, because there's this urge that we've got to be busy all the time, and this guilt if we do find ourselves sort of stood still for more than 5 minutes, that why am I not doing so, there's so many things I should be doing, and I can't cope with this, rah rah rah, I've got to keep busy. But actually you need to stop once in a while and just give yourself time to think. And how this relates to kind of your blog as well is that unless you give your brain some space, you're never really going to kind of unlock any of that creativity. You're kind of creating barriers, if you like, by not giving yourself the space to just think and reflect and explore ideas and that kind of stuff, and think about kind of the future rather than just being stuck in the present all the time. So make some time to think, allow yourself some time to think. And that can, it depends on you yourself and your routine. There's lots of different ways you could approach that. So you could just go out for a walk. If your business is based at home or you're based in an office all the time, just getting out once a day at least, just to go for a walk somewhere. I appreciate I'm in the UK, so the weather's a bit crap a lot of the time, but when you can go out and take a walk when it stops raining or snowing, as we've had recently, then going for a walk can be a great way of just freeing your brain a little bit. So you could just go for a stroll up the street to the shop or around the park, or if you live in a rural area, go for a wander around the fields, whatever. If you've got a dog, brilliant, take the dog out for a walk. But just go out of your space and just be in nature for a minute and just go for a walk and just think. Allow yourself to think. Another thing you might find is if you've got the sort of life where you spend a lot of your time stuck in a steel box on 4 wheels on a motorway, that can be a great time to be thinking as well, because you just turn the radio off, turn a CD off, or have a really kind of calming CD or something playing in the background quite quietly, and just let yourself think for a bit. That can be an opportunity to find some thinking time. Personally, I've got our spare room, which I'm in at the moment, is kind of my art room. So the spare bed is pushed into the corner and it's covered in cushions. So I find that quite a great place to just sit and chill out and relax and think for a bit. You can call it mindfulness if that works for you, but it's just having time to think and not feeling guilty about that, not feeling like you have to be busy all the time. Stopping to think can be a great way of just starting to release those creative juices a little bit. So that's my first tip. My second tip is stream of consciousness writing, or writing unintentionally. So get yourself a notebook. I would recommend doing it in a book rather than on the screen, because I think there's something that taps into our kind of creative, childlike, imaginative brain about using pen and paper, especially if it's coloured pens are quite can kind of help release some creativity a little bit. So using coloured pens can be quite a good way of doing it, and you can have a dedicated book for it as well. Just capture ideas in it. So just make some space just to sit, excuse me, and just write with no intention. Don't self-edit. Don't think about the grammar or the punctuation or anything. Just write what comes into your brain. And it might be that that what's in your brain at the moment is just like some conversation that you feel like you need to have with somebody, or something that's going on in the world that is swirling around in your brain you're thinking about. It could just be writing that down, just getting it out of your head, so that you can free up the space in your mind to be more creative, and to think beyond what's stopping you today, if you like. So just stream of consciousness, unconscious writing, and have a special space for doing it, because that kind of gives it almost a bit of a ritualistic quality about it. And of course, the advantage of doing it on paper is you can combine it with your walking time as well. So you can go to the park with a notebook and just write. You can kind of combine your thinking time a little bit if you've got a notebook. You're not kind of stuck to being by the computer. Because I think if you need to get away from your screen anyway, regularly. You need to get away from your screen every day to think, to do other things, to release your brain a little bit, to stop the distractions. When it comes to stream of consciousness writing, physically writing in a book means you are location independent. If you try and do it on screen, you'll have, like, beeps, things going on, pings, other things will distract you. So making the space to go and take it elsewhere. And nobody needs to see that. You don't have to publish it and put it out there. I'm a child of the 80s and a teenager of the 90s, and we had these like secret heart diaries when we were kids, which were kind of like little notebook with like a crappy little padlock on it. So I used to have one of those. It was like I knew that my brother or sister couldn't read my diary, and then I could like write what I liked in there, and nobody would ever see it. It was my little secret. So I'm not suggesting you go and get yourself one of those crappy little diaries, but that's the kind of idea. It's like you've got your own secret little book that is just yours, where you can write what you want to write and what you're thinking at the time, and free up your mind a little bit. And again, it's quite a mindful thing to do, that kind of unintentional writing. And what you find is, if you're doing it regularly, quite often little gems pop out. So I've got a book that I use for stream of consciousness writing, and it was during one of those that I actually came up with an idea for my last month's newsletter. It was just a phrase that I wrote that just popped into my brain. I wrote it down. I read it back and I was like, oh, that's really good. That's a seed of an idea there. So I highlighted it and used it as the basis for my newsletter. So, there can be some real gems in there. Just start to release some of that kind of writing juices, I suppose, if you like, in your unintentional writing. Then my third tip is to bank raw content. So again, we're following a bit of a process here. We're spending time to think. We're allowing ourselves to write freely, and then we're just banking that information. And when you're banking raw material, raw writing, you probably want to bank it somewhere digitally so that you can chop and paste it and use it in other stuff. Use it in your blog, whatever. Excuse me. So one of the things I do with my physical book, when I've written some ideas and stuff, when I've got some stream of consciousness and thoughts that I want to capture and bank into a blog, I just grab my phone and I open an email to myself, and I just use the sort of Google microphone thingy, and I record an email to myself, so it writes all the stuff down. I mean, it's not got any punctuation in it, it's a bit of a mess, but at least I've got the raw words written down, and then I just email it to myself, and then I'll chop and paste it and use it in my bank of content. Last year I went through had a slightly crazy idea where I decided that I wanted to have just a kind of a minimum of 2 blogs a month, but I wanted them pre-prepared so that I wasn't rushing around trying to make space to write, not following my own advice, and knew that some months are busier than other months, if you like. So I sat down and I wrote 24 blogs, but it was raw blogs. It was raw banked material. It wasn't, fully formed blogs. It was ideas. Some of them are just a headline and a few words. Some of them are much more formed. But I had the basis of all the blogs that I was going to write, the core of blogs I was going to write for 2018 at the end of last year. But that's still, because it's only 2 a month, that still allows me the freedom to be creative and write some other, off the cuff stuff at least a couple of times a month as well, which I end up doing. So I kind of got that banked, and now that it's banked, I've sat and I've gone through my diary for 2018 and decided what needs to happen, what events are taking place in the year, what my themes are for each month, and then I've related to those to the blog. So I've gone through the kind of list of raw blogs, and I've said, okay, that works with this theme, that works with this theme, and that's when I've chosen to publish those blogs. And I used my creating a content calendar free online workshop to do that, and you can find that on my website, which is learntoloveyourwords.com. But I'm recording this summary so that I can send it out to everybody who's got a webinar ticket. So anybody who got a ticket to the webinar and weren't able to make it, you will get this recording sent to you anyway, and I'll include the link to the course on there so you can go and have a look. It's free, it's just a video, follow the video first, and then there's a spreadsheet afterwards that just helps you plan your content for the year. On that basis, really plans your blogs for the year. So thinking about what's going on each month, and if you start to build up a bank of content, then you can plop in the appropriate content in the right place. And it just makes it your whole blogging strategy that much more streamlined and aligned with your business as well. So banking raw content is my third tip. My fourth tip is making space to write. So at the start of the year, I went through my diary and I blocked out Mondays and Fridays for admin/writing time. Now I don't always stick to it. There's always other stuff, quite often other bits that go on, but I try and replace that time somewhere else in the week. But I try and have the lion's share of those days for just catching up on admin and writing. But when I say writing, I don't mean, I'm not always just writing. It's quite often writing related activities. So if you plan the time in your diary, your writing time in your diary, even if it's half a day or something like that, use that space to do writing related activities. So that could be stream of consciousness. It could, I'm going to give you permission to have your thinking time and your writing time. It could be banking some raw content, or it could be making a bit of a plan, working through your content plan for the year or for the quarter or however it works for you. But as long as you're doing writing related activities in that allotted time, then you'll get there. You'll make steady progress with it. And it's rather like I liken it to when you start going to the gym or something like that. Like when you first start going, it's really hard. I've just started working with a personal trainer, and we've been working together for a few weeks now. And when I first started working with her, she's given me lots of exercises and a routine that I can do at home. And when I first started, I was so unfit. I walk a lot, so I'm fit from that point of view. But my strength isn't great. I haven't really done any kind of any strength kind of exercises for a long time. So I've got this routine, and the first time I did it, I was just so bad, and I kind of ended up contacting her the next day, going, "Oh, my abs hurt," like so whingy was. But now that I've started doing, I've got a routine into doing at least some or all, if I can, of my routine every day of the week. I've already noticed just in the space of a couple of weeks that I'm just stronger. My core feels stronger. My thighs, my legs feel stronger. I feel sort of stronger in myself, if you like. And I've noticed things like I can hold a plank for a lot longer. I can actually do a sideways plank, which I couldn't even do 3 weeks ago. And it's great when you see results. And it's the same with your writing. It's like when you first start doing it, it can be really tough. But once you get into the routine of it, once you're doing it regularly, like once a week in your writing time, once or twice a week even, in that writing time that you allocate, once you're doing those writing relating activities regularly and building up those habits, you start to see results. So at first you might have all these hang-ups about the quality of your writing and is anyone seeing it, rah rah rah. Once you start doing it regularly, those kind of hang-ups start to fall away, and you start to get some positive feedback as well. So it just takes one person to kind of like comment on something you shared on Facebook saying, "Oh, I really enjoyed that." I had somebody come up to me in a networking event last week and complimented me on a blog that I wrote last week about content versus copy. They were like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way. It was really useful." So those little affirmations are really helpful. And when you read back your own stuff as well, when you're kind of writing regularly and you write something and you think, "Oh, that's bloody good, that is." That's like, yay me, it's a great feeling when you write something that you're proud of. The only way you're going to do that is by doing it regularly, kind of overcoming some of those fears about committing your words to paper, if you like. So, making time to write. And then my fifth tip is to show up with a positive attitude. So, if you show up in any situation that telling yourself this is going to be terrible, I'm going to hate every minute of it, it's going to be awful, I'm going to be crap, if you're going and telling yourself all that, you're rarely going to disappoint yourself because you're focusing on the negative. But if you go in with a positive attitude, if you approach that space that you've protected in your diary for writing and admin time with the attitude that, "Oh, this is going to be lovely. I've got an excuse now. I've got permission. I'm going to sit and I'm just going to think and I'm going to be creative and I'm going to explore my ideas. I'm going to write stuff down. It's going to be great to be able to just express myself and feel that freedom of being able to get all this guff that's in my head out of myself and be able to turn it into something productive." So if you turn up, you show up with a positive attitude to that experience, if you look forward to it, then it really does come across in your writing. It makes the whole process so much nicer. And part of I think it's one of the reasons I call my business Learn to Love Your Words, is that we all have 24 hours in a day, and some of us seem to achieve so much more than others. You know, we have this perception that we're not doing enough, we're not busy enough, we're not enough, kind of thing. We use that we don't have time as an excuse for absolutely everything. You know, there's never enough time to do everything. It's not about not having enough time, it's about what's the priority in that time. So if writing your blog is not a priority, then you won't find the time to do it. And if you enjoy something, if you love doing something, if you find some enjoyment in that process, then you will find time to do it. So if you show up for your writing time with a positive attitude, then you're going to enjoy the process. And so then you're going to make sure that you do it regularly. And then you're going to have that consistent presence, and you're going to be able to achieve those goals. Gone will be that guilt about not writing, not putting stuff down. But the beauty of having a blog, it's not just about, you know, doing stuff for the sake of your website or for SEO or whatever. It's being able to explore ideas, it's being able to get the stuff out of your brain, committing to paper. It can be a real cathartic process, and it can be the real spine of all of your content marketing activity, because once it's out of your head and on a page, you can do something with it. You can chop it up and use it in your newsletter. You can share it on social media. You can use it to build your social media profile, your content profile, if you like. You can use it to repurpose it into other products, into talks, things like that. I'm doing a talk, I did a talk this week on blogging for writers at a Society of Authors event, where I shared like the 5 myths of blogging, and that started off as a blog post that I've just turned into slides. I'm doing a talk in London in April for just on the kind of process of writing for professional development, and that started off as a blog as well. So it started off as a webinar, in fact, and turned into a blog. So you can repurpose that content into so many different things once it's out of your head, and it can feed into so many different elements of your business. So getting out of your brain first is really important, and a blog is a great way of doing that, because it's not just sat on a hard drive not doing anything for you. While it's sat on your blog, it's doing a job as well as building that library of content that you can use in other ways. So my 5 tips, just to give you a quick recap, and it's sort of a bit of a process as well, is make time to think and have thinking time, and don't feel guilty about thinking time. Embrace thinking time. Stream of consciousness or unintentional writing. So just write with no purpose, just to get the blocks out of your head, just to clear what's in your brain and dump it onto the page. And I say page because I think when it comes to stream of consciousness, the physical act of writing has a way of being more creative and more cathartic and more ritualistic than if you're typing it on a screen. Banking raw content is actually capturing the gems within your stream of consciousness, the ideas that you have for your blog, and just banking it somewhere digitally. And you can do that by voice recording your handwritten stuff into a document or into an email or something, so you've got the words on screen and you can start chopping and changing. Making space to write, so blocking time out of your diary and protecting that time. And then using that time, even if you're not in a creative peak where you feel like you can write lots of stuff, using it for writing related activities. When you're not in a creative peak, we tend to be more in an analytic space, and so that's a good time to be planning stuff, planning content, planning ideas. And then when you're in the creative peak, that's when you can kind of actually act on those ideas, if you like. And then the final tip was, when you make that time to write, show up with a positive attitude. Show up in looking forward to the process, enjoying the process. And just to go back to my analogy of going to the gym or something like that, working with a personal trainer, I'm starting to get to the point. This is a big admit for me. Starting to get to the point where I quite enjoy doing my routine now. I always feel good afterwards. And so in my head right now, I'm thinking about, how am I going to fit this into my day today? When am I going to do it? Rather than like, oh, I'm going to do this exercise kind of thing. I'm actually kind of looking forward to doing it. And if you can do that with your writing, then you're much more likely to do it and build up those healthy writing habits. So following a sensible process, allowing yourself the time to think, to do, to act, to capture information, building up a library, all of those things can help you overcome that fear of blogging, that kind of temptation to quit, and you can learn to love your words. So thank you. Bye for now.